Hey Pawan, good to be back with you today.
Same here.
So, for the topic that we have today, I think a good discussion between us could be in terms of how AI is impacting specifically when we talk about healthcare side of our healthcare and life sciences industry. Now, in my experience so far, what I've observed is that, obviously healthcare industry has not been indifferent to technological innovation. Rather, it has invested in digital transformation at an extraordinary scale. However, when we look at the outcomes of these investments, we typically see that they have fallen short of expectations, particularly from the perspective of healthcare consumer, which is the patient in this case. The most visible example in some of the large scale implementations of EHR systems across different hospitals and health systems over the past 2 decades is what we've seen. What is your experience like? When we talk about architecture, is there a same critique that applies from your perspective as well?
Yes, Divesh, I completely agree. Like it's not just EHR systems and the investment we have made, but then same critics applies to all point solutions that followed in healthcare industry, being it population health management platforms, being it care management applications, being it your portal technologies, prior authorization automation. All these tools have addressed specific friction points in the larger ecosystem. However, none of them has addressed the consumer experience end to end. So challenge is all these technologies are helping us be more compliant, help us solve clinical needs, but then we are not keeping patient or member in the center to understand how to make patient life better. So consumer experience is still not at that same level as other industries in healthcare.
And I agree with you. I think, see, one of the things that I would share as a perspective is that what differentiates us now is not necessarily availability of better technologies. I believe, although there is a significant advancement that we've seen from a technology standpoint, but more importantly, multiple technology waves are now maturing simultaneously. So we are not seeing one section of technology maturing, it's multiple different types of technologies. Their convergence is creating, perhaps for the first time, a very realistic possibility of designing healthcare consumer experience to what you said, right? I mean, that's where we are lacking. But then technology, in my opinion, somewhere is is facilitating us, to create those customer or consumer experiences which are continuous, number one, which are personalized, which are transparent, and which are trust enhancing across the entire care journey, because trust is an important thing. We can discuss about some of the technologies, Pawan, for the benefit of our audience here, in terms of whether we talk about artificial intelligence or we talk about generative AI and so on. So,
So
would
I
you
feel,
want
yeah,
your perspective?
yes. So I feel like overall we can bucket all these new technologies in 5 buckets.
Hmm.
If I have to do that, very first is your where entire world is talking about your AI, which includes generative AI, large language models. This certainly has a capability of personalizing consumer interactions. Then your second set of technology, which is playing very important role now, is with wearable sensors and all through Internet of Things. Okay,
Yeah.
but then biggest advantage, you may get a good inputs from variables, but then without edge computing, you won't get a real-time information. Now, edge computing is taking it to next level. Then fourth bucket would be your telehealth and virtual care, where it has a potential to reach to a larger population, which is not kind of getting right access to care today due to their locations. And then fifth one, which is very important, is blockchain-enabled data transparency, which will come through data interoperability as well. So I think largely these are the 5 technologies, and then maybe we can share our perspective on different technologies. Number one is AI and generative AI, which also talks about ambient AI now, because ambient AI is bringing a lot of documentation. Your second category is IoT. Third is edge computing. Fourth is telehealth and virtual care. Fifth one is blockchain-enabled data transparency.
Yeah, and then maybe I can share some perspective on IoT, because this is perhaps one of the things that we speak not very openly or not necessarily, we don't hear a lot about IoT, especially when we talk about our industry. And when we think about, as you said, right, wearable biosensors, remote patient monitoring,
Yeah.
continuous glucose monitors, the cardiac implants. I think the IoT technology has provided us with a full ecosystem of connected health devices. And this ecosystem is allowing us to tap into a stream of real-time longitudinal health data that properly integrates into our customer experience. Now, and that would typically help us close the gap between the patient knowing about their own health and what the care system knows. So yeah, I mean, IoT definitely, as you rightly mentioned, and by the way, we are talking about like what, 45, $46 billion of
Yes.
industry that it was in 2023, and we are expecting it to grow almost $200 billion by 2032, 2033. So even the numbers kind of suggest on the kind of adoption IoT has had.
No, absolutely. And similarly, telehealth and virtual care, as I was mentioning in the beginning, have demonstrated a 40% improvement in care access for underserved population. The telehealth market, which is valued at about 120 billion in 24, is projected to reach about 500 plus billion by 2031.
Yeah.
Which is has a big potential for industry to stay focused and then see how we can make telehealth as mainstream. Though there was a significant movement during COVID time, but then we should keep the momentum on. May not be for your tier 1, tier 2 cities, but for remote care, telehealth is going to be the big game changers.
And lastly, maybe we can then summarize, Pawan. I think for me, blockchain, the kind of transparency that we have been able to bring by using blockchain technology, especially in, I know it's relatively in early deployment phases when we start talking about healthcare. However, it is giving us a good promise in terms of helping us address that trust deficit, that we've had in this industry, because it enables, verifiable, auditable, consumer controlled health data exchange.
Yes.
So organizations are exploring blockchain applications for things like prior authorization, audit trails,
Yes.
clinical trial consent,
Yeah.
health information exchange, and so on. So absolutely, I think some of these, technologies that you outlined, the 5 different areas, are absolutely making a lot of difference in the entire healthcare space.
Absolutely. And taken together, these emerging technologies signals a broader transition in healthcare from provider-centric healthcare to consumer-centered experience design.
Yeah.
Because using one of these technologies in isolation is not going to help. Probably working and using a combination of these technologies has a potential and would create a significant difference for larger ecosystem in healthcare.
Yeah. So I think if we have to quickly summarize this for our teams or our audience there, the first takeaway for me from this conversation was that emerging technologies positively influence healthcare consumer preferences. In terms of the 5 different technologies, AI-driven personalization significantly is improving engagement and satisfaction. We have telehealth, as you mentioned, Pawan, and virtual care platforms that improve access for underserved populations. Obviously, blockchain-enabled transparency and responsible AI governance. And lastly, Pawan, I think you said about unified or unification of multi-technology framework, which is actually producing a lot of measurable and consumer outcomes.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well said, Divesh. I think good conversation. Team, enjoy rest of the sessions.
Thank you so much, Pawan. Thank you.
Thank you.